We just saw Snowpiercer, and the way this show works is we review the movie in two parts. The first part is spoiler-free, help you decide if you want to go check the movie out or not. And then the second half, we go into more detail, potentially into spoilers. So if you haven't seen the movie yet and you want to, don't watch past that point. But if you have seen the movie, or if you don't care and just want to hear what we thought, go ahead and keep watching. So, Snowpiercer is one of these movies. It didn't get a very big release. There's kind of a story behind all of that, kind of a show business story. But it's also gotten really good word of mouth. I've heard from a lot of people that it's really good and that it's something to definitely go check out in the theater and go see. And I can see why people like it. There's a lot to like. There's a lot of good action. There's a lot of good science fiction. There's a lot of really interesting things going on. It's kind of episodic in that, you know, things just sort of, in some cases, like, it feels like a whole different movie as they move from one car to another. And it's a little on the lengthy side, which I think is one of the reasons why it didn't get as big of a release as it probably could have, if they had cut it down. But overall, I liked it. It had kind of a feel like, sort of like the Raid 2 had sort of that kind of a vibe going for me. Yeah. But yeah, if you're in the mood for something with some sci-fi action and you've already seen Edge of Tomorrow, this is probably a good movie to see. I would say Edge of Tomorrow is a better sci-fi movie, and a more tight story, more constructed story. But for what this is really good, and I would recommend it to genre fans. What'd you guys think?
I really liked it. It's very strange. It's like a live action anime basically, but I really liked it. And kind of watching it and accepting it as that. It's already about like a snow train in a post-apocalyptic world, so I'm not gonna like keep it to too stringent logic standards, really. Yeah. But I had fun with it. It's one of those movies that feels a little bit like it could have originally been intended as a video game almost. Like, I wanted to play through it, but I had a lot of fun with it. I liked that guy from Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance who was in it, the Asian guy, I can't remember his name. But he was really good. Chris Evans was fun. I don't know, it was a fun, strange movie.
Cool. I too enjoyed it. I'll let you go last because I know you disagree.
All right.
Yeah, it's a movie that doesn't hold up to a lot of scrutiny, but I think that's okay as long as you're able to kind of, you know, suspend your disbelief a little bit. Yeah. And so building a little bit on what Dale said about, you know, the episodic nature, and like Julie said about the live action anime, my understanding is this is based on a Korean comic from the 80s. So if you keep that in mind, a lot of it makes a lot more sense, especially with the pacing. And
yeah, it feels like a comic
and
for
some
sure.
of the filmography. That's kind of where that feel comes from. So I can get that. Yeah, there were a lot of great performances in it. I thought Tilda Swinton was amazing in her part, as odd as a part of it as it was. I really enjoyed it. I think calling it a pure sci-fi movie might be a little unfair. I think I think probably the biggest thing to take away from it is to just really dig into the social commentary. I think that's the strength of the movie, and that's probably what I found the most interesting with the social Darwinism and stuff that they had going on. I think that's what I was able to enjoy most, and let me kind of just ignore some of the thin layer of premise that was there.
Well, and that's what good sci-fi does, right? I mean, it puts us into a state of mind where we can think about things or kind of contextualize things a little bit differently. So, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And yeah, I'll be the one lone voice of dissent. I did not like it. I wouldn't say I hated it. There were parts that really worked for me. There were certain moments that were so goofy that it pulled me out of it. And I really loved movies like 12 Monkeys, Dark City, which I feel that this was kind of going for a similar vibe. The tone, for me, shifted pretty wildly. The acting is kind of strange, but I liked it in Pacific Rim. This kind of had that same sort of like strange, heightened sense of reality acting.
Too. I really thought that too.
Yeah, and in Pacific Rim that really worked. And in this movie, it didn't. They asked me to like accept too much of the science of how this crazy train, sorry for the pun, worked.
There's our intro.
Yeah, and any moment.
Oh, man, that would have been such a great cameo.
I mean, there's moments where it's like, look at this sealed aquarium that we eat out of once a year and has a stingray in it for some reason. There were too many moments of that where I just couldn't buy the crazy logic. And there's a weird twist at the end that feels telegraphed, and I just if you liked crazy sci-fi movies, go back and watch 12 Monkeys, watch City of Children, watch something that's much, much better. That would be my recommendation.
Okay, so there's the basics. If it sounds like something that you want to go see, definitely go check it out. Don't let us spoil anything. There's lots of great things that happen in this movie that are worth seeing for yourself for the first time. So spoilers will happen past this point. So yeah, I don't watch movies like this and just sort of pull out my science calculator and try and figure out where the...
Oh, absolutely not. I thought there were too many moments where they tried to like show you the science side of it, and it just never worked for me.
Yeah,
I can see that maybe if they had not dwelled on it as much in some
Yeah,
places,
we're like 12 Monkeys, they never try to really explain how any of that crazy junk is working, where in this, they did it a little too frequently for my taste.
So what did they over-explain?
Just the whole, and I know it was part of the social commentary, like everything's a closed system, and we have to maintain this perfect balance and everything.
Right.
I thought that was a little weird. I think that there were a couple people that were robots, and that they never came out and said that.
They explain why everybody's acting so weird, which finally worked for me. I liked that they did finally explain why everyone was playing it like they were a crazy person.
Yeah, and some of that made sense. They alluded to a lot of drug usage, sort of like a 1984 Soma sort of a thing. Drug/plastic explosive in a pinch, which is interesting.
It's the best way to have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think the idea of like the upper class being bored, strung out, like that makes so much sense. That you can see that happening.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed the scenes where they were just walking through. They're all dirty and filthy, and here's all the front of the train people just kind of just curious more than anything. Like they didn't even seem overly concerned. They were just like, that's strange.
Yeah.
Until they get to the rave, and then they were stealing their drugs, and then the rave kids freaked out.
Yeah.
Well, eventually
that's why they came after them.
Eventually they did.
Yeah.
And it
took them a while.
There was also sort of, I mean, what I would say is that I don't feel like it did do a lot of explaining or hand-holding. I felt like this movie gave you as much as you pulled out of it, and the rest of it was just kind of insanity. And they explained like the whole importance of the closed system part of things, and how they try to like close off each train car and all of that kind of stuff, and that kind of gave it that echo of Tilda Swinton explaining it earlier in the movie, and then Ed Harris's character, big spoiler, explaining it at the end of the movie. None of that stuff really bothered me. I felt a lot that, when you were talking about it kind of feeling like a video game, to me it felt like something from the BioShock universe.
Oh god, I thought BioShock so much
definitely.
throughout it. Like, especially Ed Harris's character is just Andrew Ryan.
You mean BioShock 2?
We don't talk
The
about
bad one.
We don't talk. No,
I kept thinking of Sophia Lamb throughout it.
Yeah, I think it felt a lot like the first BioShock, where you've got, you're walking through Rapture, you're walking through this utopia where things aren't quite as perfect as they want them to be, and you've got sort of this mad leader running the show he thinks he's doing the right thing, but he's not.
Yeah.
And it also had, and this was kind of weird, and it probably only occurred to me because I was like, I knew that there was somebody important at the end of the train, like as far as casting goes. I knew there was like a special surprise person at the end of it, and I didn't know it was Ed Harris, but I was like, in my mind, I was like casting like my dream conductor for this thing, and
Tom Hanks.
No, that was like
Freeman?
that was the funniest one I came up with. Was Tom Hanks?
He's
like
taking
For the Polar
making,
Express.
he's making cocoa in the front.
Right.
The animated bear, which did show up at the end.
Yeah. Have you met Santa Claus yet? No, what I actually wanted was Gene Wilder to be at the front of the train.
Oh, that would have been good. Yeah.
And
It
for-
runs on pure imagination.
Almost.
because
Almost.
if they had played it that way, where we never like we hear Ed Harris try to justify what he's doing, right?
He's very good at it. Like he
He
really
is very
cared,
good
man.
at it, but what I would have preferred would have been something like the end of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, where you totally get what the leader's trying to do, and at least one of the characters, like at least Chris Evans' character, is like, okay, like I accept this. Like I accept this responsibility, I accept this reality. You are giving me control of the rest of humanity.
Yeah, the last remnants of humanity.
Yeah, the end of everything. And maybe I don't run it quite as crazy as you do. Like maybe I have a better solution for maintaining all these balances and all of this order, or maybe I, screw things up and
Everybody does.
I don't get it right. But instead of, nah, I just have to kill you. That was kind of what I had in my head, but yeah, the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory ending just kept playing through in my head. That's kind of what I kept seeing happen in it, and I knew that there would be sort of an Andrew Ryan, Bioshock-like
there had
twist
to
at
be.
the end of
Yeah,
it.
especially because he was. I mean, the way Tilda Swinton's character talks about him, you just know he's going to be, that guy.
Yeah.
They're basically worshiping him from the train. I think the only two things that really bothered me that I had a sticking point with was I just wished for like maybe 2 establishing shots where they walked through like a sleeper car. Because it was like, here's a car with like 100 people, where are they sleeping? And like, I know that's not the point, but I just wanted to see one train where all the front people were sleeping, because we never saw that. And then the other thing that I thought was weird was, if the water car's so important, move it up. Maybe not have it.
Yeah, it was like the third from the
It
end.
was. They were like,
Right.
They got to the water thing in no time. They're like, yeah, we'll capture the water car. It's really important if we control the water. I'm thinking that's just really
It was
bad
like
security.
steerage,
Well, and then-
food, water.
Well,
Yeah. Right after that, they were like, well, it actually wasn't important.
Yeah, they're like, oh well, really.
And that's part of that is an issue with adapting a comic book,
Yeah.
where
Because chances are this came out over multiple little issues. Each couple of train cars was one issue.
the comic had to have a climax, every issue.
Yeah,
And so
that was totally.
every car had like 2 or 3 different big moments in them, which made it feel like a lot of tiny movies put together, a lot of short films put together. And they do a lot of things like skip over sort of the more mundane things, like where people sleep and all
Which
that kind of
sometimes
stuff.
I'm okay with that. Like a lot of times I'm okay with that. But then sometimes I just kind of wish for like just 2 seconds of footage, just be like, oh yeah, there it is.
Yeah.
But I feel like those are the kinds of things that make, to Christian's point, I think those are the kind of things that
Would've been
make
too
people
much.
insane about sci-fi movies, where
Sure.
they start picking apart, well, they didn't show enough places for people
Fair
to
enough.
sleep.
Yeah.
If you get too wrapped up in, that couldn't have worked.
Yeah.
It's like, well, give the movie a little bit of credit. Like, give the
Yeah.
storytellers a little bit of credit. Let it be okay that they didn't show us absolutely everything
Right.
in this thing. They didn't explain
Yeah.
absolutely everything.
Yeah.
That's where I agree with Christian, is that I feel like there was a little bit too much exposition because it made me think about it that much more.
Yeah.
That there was so much exposition, because I was on board. I'm like, well, whatever. I've read articles about like trains in Chicago can generate some of their own electricity now. So I was like, all right, fine, whatever. This just works because it does. But then like explaining it more and more, it did force me to think about it more. And I'm like, all right, this is not the fun part of the movie for me, is crazy future train science.
Yeah, it was like, I think the specific example that I can think of is like with the children. So they kidnapped children from the tail section to replace this part that just ran out. But then they also but we've been training you to replace this part that just ran out. that like didn't make any sense to me. It's like
it was like extra over motivating. Like he's so evil, right?
Yeah, like we didn't need to add in this twist where we've been conditioning you to replace this part.
Well, I think that's the requirement for us not getting the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory ending. Is there has to be something that's one step more insidious about what Ed Harris is doing.
Which that was really telegraphed. Like from the beginning, I was like, "There's going to be kids in the engine."
I thought the kids were going to be the protein bars, and then they showed it was just bugs.
Like on top of that, did anybody else think that they were going to be chopping up people? Because when they took the violinist, the guy was like,
"We just need your hands.
We just need your hands." And I'm like, "Oh, they're like chopping people up." To
yeah,
like,
I mean, you think about
the way I mean, because that was like very specific phrasing.
Yeah,
that wasn't an accident. Not really, but like with the emphasis, he's like, "No, we need both hands." That was like a really specific way to put that.
Yeah, I think it was red herring material, and I think it's also held over from the comics. I mean, the whole
over dramatic and
and mysterious for the sake of being mysterious, or mysterious just to keep you intrigued.
Yeah.
But you know, the whole, because people eating people is something that you would expect to happen in this situation.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Chris Evans explains that it did actually happen. It just happened before we picked up the story. Yeah.
I felt so bad that I was kind of, I could not help but crack a smile during that monologue.
There were some lines that were just, I couldn't decide if they were just really poor translations, like, because like there's translations that are literal translations that sound so silly in our language that, you know, when they come from another language.
There were some crazy dumb lines of dialogue.
The line that was like, be careful.
That was funny.
They're like standing around and there's like this whole car full of dudes with like masks and hatchets. And they just stand there for like a minute.
Fish guts on.
Yeah.
What was that about? That weird
thing?
catfish ritual?
So my assumption is that the idea was don't get cut because it's going to get infected now. That was what I was thinking.
Oh, maybe.
I mean, like, even if I don't kill you with this hut, you're gonna go down and you're just gonna die from nasty and like that was my assumption. I don't know if that's what they were going for because it was weird, but
and then the whole like
maybe that's a Korean thing.
We're out of bullets. No, we were just waiting. We wanted to see how far you could get before we brought the bullets back out.
Yeah.
Well, that kind of makes sense knowing the explanation at the end. I could see why they did that, but it did feel weird at the time. Like, why weren't you using bullets then?
Yeah, I can't actually explain what the catfish thing was about. I think part of it was like to freak them out.
Yeah.
I think also part of it was the filmmakers making a decision about, you know, hey, this is something that we can kill on screen for real and put in this film, you know, and show that part of it. And maybe that's not what it really is in the comic. Like maybe it's something way more disturbing.
And it could be playing into that insanity thing which gets mentioned at the end, that everybody on there is just crazy.
You gotta be.
Yeah.
I think you would have to be, honestly. Like, I think there would be so much cabin fever and
Jesus, yeah.
Just to the nth degree. I think it makes so much sense that the people with the privilege would be just baked out of their minds the entire time.
Yeah, that's the way to live.
On whatever they could get on, you know, whether it was alcohol or drugs or whatever.
Yep. I think one other interesting, because I was reading up a little bit, and something I probably wouldn't have guessed, but I guess makes sense now, is that this was a totally non-Hollywood studio. Which, I mean, it's obvious now.
Yeah,
I don't think I would have caught on to that ahead of time.
So the backstory on this movie and the reason why it's not like super wide in release, it actually came out last year in most other places in the world.
Oh, wow.
It's the guy that made it is a Korean filmmaker, and they made the movie and got it distributed all over the world. And when they came to get it distributed in America, the Weinstein Company acquired the rights to distribute it. And they said, we'll distribute your movie, but you've got to cut 25 minutes out of it. And the director said, I'm just not doing it. And they said, well, if you don't do it, we're not going to do a wide release of your movie. And he said, well, then you're not going to do a wide release of my movie.
Nice.
So
like
this is his full vision. This is his full version of the movie. But there's a lot of people that have been sort of word of mouth trying to get people to go see this movie are sort of like on the director's side of it, saying, you know, if the Weinstein brothers are going to distribute the movie, they should distribute the movie as is and not, you know, try and trim it down to
what was the
better suit
runtime?
It's I don't know off the top of my head. It's over 2 hours.
Was it? Wow.
I'm
Honestly,
pretty
I didn't feel like
I
it.
believe so.
I didn't feel like it was an overly long movie.
Yeah, it did
Oh,
move
really?
along at a very good pace.
I mean,
One of my only one of my only big criticisms was it felt way too long to me.
Really?
I'd hate to be on the Weinstein brothers side of anything.
it was at least 2 hours long.
Oh, okay.
It was at least 2
Yeah,
hours
it really didn't feel like it to me.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, we live in an age where Transformers 4 is 237 minutes or whatever ungodly.
That was overly long.
That was crazy long. It was just stupid long. Yeah. So yeah, Frozen 2 or the Polar Express 2 or whatever you want to call it. Like I said, I really enjoyed it. There's a lot of symbolism in there, a lot of stuff to
heavy,
dig
yeah.
into. It's something
Yeah.
I would definitely like to watch again with a notebook and kind of think about and break down the scenes a bit more.
They were all about the arms in this movie.
There's a lot
a
going
lot
on.
of limb removal.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of disarming.
Nah.
Oh.
Yep.
Disarming. The poor guy from the Spin Doctors, man.
Getting his arm frozen off.
He sings about two princes, but he's only got one arm. Well, that was Snowpiercer. Hope you enjoyed our review. If you like the way we do this, please like the video, subscribe, and check out the written and video reviews over on DaleMaxfield.com. Thanks for watching.